Starfighters are one of the most beloved categories of ships in Star Wars, but if you asked any Star Wars fan what the best Starfighters were, they'd probably answer X-Wing, Y-Wing, A-Wing, different X-Wing, and B-Wing. And they'd be right, as those are all excellent ships. However, the Rebellion wasn't the only place you could find good Starfighters. This week, let's take a look at some of the other options. I'm Joey from Radio Free Coruscant, and this is the top 5 Starfighters not named after a letter.
Set his foils in attack position.
This is where the fun begins.
Balab 22. We'll start with the Fethan Atra Scalable Assemblies Balab 22, although we aren't ranking them in any particular order. This ship was considered a heavy starfighter even though it was actually one of the smallest manned fighters in the galaxy. It measured 6.7 meters long by about 4.2 meters wide. It was armed with 2 triple light laser cannons, which gave it an incredibly high rate of fire and damage output comparable to the Republic's ARC-170. It was one of the sturdiest starfighters ever made, too, with armor on par with some gunships and impressive shields for a ship of its minute size. This was the preferred vehicle of Separatist leader General Grievous, who owned a customized Balab named Solus 1. Though he mainly used it to flee from situations where he lost his preferred element of surprise, his ownership of such a starfighter should be considered an enormous endorsement of its power and safety. This would be a great starfighter for an assassin or mercenary who requires a ship that is small and subtle while still being able to take a few hits. It would not be suitable for anyone who requires more luggage than they can carry in their lap, and at 168,000 credits each, it would not be recommended for pirates or rebel cells who would want to purchase an entire squadron either. ARC-170. The ARC-170 was a large starfighter used by the Republic during the Clone Wars. This was without a doubt one of the most powerful conventional starfighters ever made. It was 12.7 meters long by 19.8 meters wide, and was armed with 2 medium lasers, 2 laser turrets, and 2 proton torpedo launchers. It had very durable armor and engines that could propel it to 1,050 kilometers per hour. What made the ARC-170 truly special, though, were its electronic warfare systems. It had a jamming device for electronic countermeasures and extremely advanced sensors for a starfighter. These sensors, as well as its long range and rugged construction, made it an exceptional scout ship. Hence the name. ARC stands for Aggressive Reconnaissance. ARC-170s were exclusively produced for the Republic and not for sale to planetary defense forces or others. They remained in use by the Empire for several years before being replaced with the TIE line. Most were scrapped, but some were sold, lost, or stolen and could be seen in use by many factions. If you could get your hands on one, an ARC-170 would make an excellent starfighter for a rebel cell, private security force, or other medium-sized operation. However, such a complicated machine would likely be too maintenance and crew-intensive for smaller organizations or individuals. Porx 38. Going back to the Separatists, the Rogue-class Porx 38 starfighter used by their Magna Guard droids is one of the galaxy's best. It is a fairly large fighter at 12.7 meters long and 12.9 meters wide, and it is very well armed with 2 heavy laser cannons, a rarity in starfighters. It also has a jamming device and sensors almost as powerful as those of the ARC-170. They could even be equipped with a cloaking device, though this was an extremely rare, possibly one-of-a-kind, aftermarket modification. The bounty hunters Dirge and Cad Bane both used rogue classes at some point in their careers. Bane in particular requested his as payment up front for an extremely difficult and risky job, along with the cloaking device. If the most successful bounty hunter of his time requesting a rogue as payment from the Dark Lord of the Sith himself isn't a powerful endorsement, I don't know what is. This ship would be an excellent choice for any person or group that needs a starfighter, especially one that wants a simpler one-man version of the ARC 170. Nantex-class Territorial Defense Starfighter. The Geonosian Beak Wing, better known as the Nantex-class, was one of the first Separatist ships the Republic fought in the Clone Wars. Perhaps it would be a stretch to call it one of the best starfighters in Star Wars, but it is certainly one of the most unique, so I had to mention it. It measured 9.8 meters long by 1.9 meters wide, and was armed with a single laser cannon turret. This meant that it is the weakest starfighter on this list, but the turret gave it a very wide firing arc. The ship's engine was also mounted in a ball turret, meaning that the Nantex was possibly the most maneuverable manned ship ever built, surpassed only by droid starfighters. The most interesting feature, though, was the array of 100 tiny tractor beam projectors lining the ship's beak. These were primarily used to make minute adjustments to its laser beam's trajectory, giving the ship one of the most accurate and precise weapon systems ever built. The tractor beams could also be used for maneuvering when close to the ground or anything larger than the Nantex, and could also be used to grapple other starfighters to force them into just the right position for its cannon to hit a weak spot. However, the reason the Nantex was so unique is that it was designed exclusively for Geonosian physiology. The dizzying maneuverability and extraordinarily complex weapon system required a Geonosian's dexterity to operate, and most of the ship's avionics and flight information were delivered to the pilot through a scent mask that could deliver more data than an entire room full of standard instruments could display. The scent mask was so thorough that it could even be removed from the starfighter, and a Geonosian could pilot a Nantex remotely if necessary, though this was not common practice. Unfortunately, Geonosians are the only species that can make sense of what the scent mask is telling them. I can't exactly give a recommendation as to who this ship would be good for like I have with the other entries on this list. If you are not a Geonosian, do not attempt to fly this ship. N1 Starfighter. The final ship on our list is the Naboo N1 Starfighter. While the statistics of this elegant craft are modest, it is nothing short of legendary. It measured 11 meters long by about 5 meters wide. It was armed with 2 laser cannons and 2 proton torpedo launchers that fired through one launch tube. Besides its looks, the N1 was best known for its speed. At 1100 kilometers per hour, it was one of the fastest starfighters of its time. It was also famous for being a very eco-friendly ship. The people of Naboo were very environmentally conscious, and the Theed Palace Space Vessel Engineering Corps made sure to modify the engines they installed in Naboo ships like the N1 to drastically reduce their emissions. The N1 would be a great all-purpose starfighter for any group or individual in need of one. I would be inclined to think that it would be fairly difficult to get one of these, as they were not built in great numbers and were only used by one planet's tiny defense force. However, they do pop up for sale from time to time. Pelimoto found one that she repaired, souped up, and sold to Din Djarin, and a private law enforcement agency named Janata Security used at least one of these in service of the First Order. If you are environmentally conscious and can afford to buy and maintain such a collector's item, there is no better starfighter than the N1. And those are the top 5 starfighters not named after a letter. I also left out TIE fighters because they warrant a video all on their own, and I usually prefer to talk about ships that the average citizen or small business could reasonably expect to get their hands on. Let me know which of these was your favorite, and what you would have chosen instead in the comments below. I realized partway through writing this that I just mentioned 3 of these ships in the last video, and I'm going to mention at least 2 of those again in the next one. I've been on kind of a prequels kick lately and wanted to take a break from that era, but then realized that's the only era with starfighters that aren't named the whatever wing. I thought about dipping into ships from books and comics like the Chiss Clawcraft or Cloak Shape Fighter, but I decided it would be better to save those for a top 5 Starfighters that have never been seen on screen, or top 5 Starfighters in the books and comics type of video. I'll have to add that to the list. Anyway, if you liked the video, like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. If you didn't like the video, do those things anyway to upset and confuse me. Regardless of your thoughts on it, I am very grateful for your support, and I will see you next week. RFC, out.